Hello, it's Dave with URAL Motorcycles, back with you for part 3 of installing the spare wheel to the front position on 2015 to 2019 and 2020 to current model years. I'd like to also ask if you'd please subscribe and hit the little bell icon. That way you'll get early notifications anytime we upload new videos. So without wasting any time, let's get to this. We're going to prepare the spare first, get this splined collar off so we can put the front brake components onto this wheel. Now this is the newer spare, so the rotor adapter looks a little different than the old style that was basically a big ring. This can stay on just like in the last video when we worked on the older bike, and it won't interfere when everything is installed on the bike. This will just spin on the outside and it can stay on as far as fitting the spare to the front. We will be using the toolkit that came with this 2021, and although there are a few things that have changed in the toolkit, one thing they did include was this nice little piece of crushed tubing that actually engages with the tools quite nicely. So on the older bike, the toolkit, I used the spark plug tool as a little extra leverage. Well, they actually thought about including one in this kit. But as I've said before, the more you familiarize yourself with your kit and the needs of your bike in a potential emergency situation, the more prepared you can be by equipping your bike with what you may need to make the job easier. Throw it in the trunk or under the seat. So let's start by getting this splined hub collar off first. Once all the bolts are out, you can take your little screwdriver that's in the kit. This thing may be glued down a little bit with the Loctite that is on there from the factory. They kind of smash it all together and glue it a little bit. So a little tapping and maybe a little bit of lifting and you can get this thing popped off. So if it's really stuck on there, you can also use the other piece of the spark plug tool, the round dowel part that goes through here and acts as your handle when you're taking out the spark plugs. You can use the round part and put it just in the top of the flange and work it back and forth with some lifting motion. See how I got that rotated there? And then you can, oops, and you can pull it off. But yeah, all that Loctite basically just glued this thing down. And same as on the other wheel that we took apart in the second video, you got your bushing with the little lip on it that sits into the recess on the washer, and all that presses in against the bearing. So you're going to want to remove all this, and you can either put it on the front wheel with the hardware to keep everything organized, or you can just throw this in your trunk as long as you don't lose anything, or leave it on the side of the road. So now that that's all prepared, we can take the rotor and the adapter slash spacer off that wheel. As you can see, newer bike, newer hardware, cap head bolts, 6mm. Okay. Rotor off. Now you got to remove the bolts that hold on the adapter. As I was saying in the second video on the 2020, January 2020 and newer vehicles, the C-clip was eliminated on the to retain the bearing, and the new design brake adapter, the seal is in the spacer, and then you got the same thing as we saw before, where you got the bushing with the little flange that sits in the recess in the washer, that sits in the recess in the adapter, and now that whole assembly is what retains the bearing instead of a separate C-clip and the adapter going on the outside of this machine collar. The only thing holding the bearing in was the C-clip before. Now it's part of the adapter. Now some of you may be asking, is this adapter something that you can upgrade to your older bike? Absolutely. If you contact your dealer or service center, you can get the bushing and washer and adapter, all those little parts there, put on your front wheel, and that'll eliminate the need for the C-clip. In the case of emergency, you won't have to contend with that like you would on the earlier bikes. You're on the side of the road, so you're going to get these as tight as you can. You're going to want to screw them down evenly, so get them all started first with your 6mm hex key or Allen wrench, whatever you prefer to term it. Get a few threads started so you're not cross-threaded in any of the holes, and that this is sitting down flush. Once you got a few of them started and you're all lined up, go in a cross pattern and get them as tight as you can for a roadside fix. When you get back to a service center or a dealer or someplace that's helping you with the repair, if you're on a long trip, then you can apply Loctite and torque these to the recommended specifications per your owner's manual. Now you take your disc and put it back on the adapter and start running down the bolts. Okay, rotor's on. Now we can take your flat and you either put all your little parts, you can put them on the spare, run your hardware down so you don't lose it, or like I said, just throw it in the truck, or throw it in the trunk. And if you haven't seen the second video in this 3-part series where we do the older bike, I encourage you to go watch that one as well, because there may be a few things I talked about in that one that I haven't talked about in this. So now that's ready. Your flat front is ready to be mounted back on your spare tire carrier, and we can go ahead and put the prepared spare in the front position. We can now roll the tire into position and get your reaction link and the forged caliper bracket. Don't forget that this part here is going to have to go into that recess. Same routine as the other video. We take our axle and get it hanging there so you can be prepared to grab it and start sliding it through once you lift. And then on the side of the road, I would use my boot or shoe or whatever to lift it into position. Once you got it lifted, you can get that in the recess and take your axle and start sliding it through. You want to make sure that the axle is actually going through the brake bracket, and that the axle is going through the other side of the swing arm. You can tap it with the palm of your hand and start the retaining bolt. Remember, this is reverse thread on this, and you can tighten up with a 17 on this side and a 10 millimeter on this side. Reverse threads, so we're going counterclockwise. Then you go back to your 6 millimeter. And you can tighten up your pinch bolts on each side. This prevents the axle from spinning. And the machined collar on this end of the axle pushes on the inside bushing against the inner bushing in the wheel and aligns everything that way. Take your caliper. If you put anything in place, you can remove that. If not, hopefully nobody grabbed your brake lever to collapse it. It should easily fit over the rotor, and then you can get your bolts started that hold the caliper to the bracket. $17 millimeter. Now you're ready to lift the bike. And remove whatever you had holding it up. Take the bike off the center stand. Once the bike's back on the ground, you can put your spare back on the carrier. Install your luggage rack back onto the mounting pins. Install the spare tire or nut. Tighten that up. Fix the mess you made of your tool kit. And stow that wherever you store your toolkit. And as you can see, the whole trick to eliminating the C-clip is that change in adapter. New hardware, old hardware. So like I said, you might want to change those out if you had the opportunity. And then as you can see on both sides, the rear adapter for the rear rotor that is normally on the spare sitting on the trunk, that clears and spins freely on both the old style and the new style. That doesn't have to be removed when you're fitting the spare to the front. There you have it, part 3 in the books. You can put a pin in it. It only took 2 years, but we're finally done. As always, I appreciate you watching, and I'd like to ask that you hit the subscribe button and click the little bell icon. That way, if you have notifications turned on, you can get notification anytime we upload a new video pertaining to tech or what's going on with the company, like the video I did with Ilya last week where I interviewed him for the 2nd time. If you're interested in these things, hit the like button, and it encourages us to continue doing these. And until next time, ride safe, and I'll talk to you later.